Hi, Rebecca. I know that you're not only a writer but also a scientist, and you have been researching Welsh medieval history, the question of identity in the Middle Ages. And it sounds like a very modern topic, and I wonder if behind the creation of identity in the Middle Ages you are actually trying to find something about our contemporary identity.
It's an interesting question, yes. Questions of identity are important throughout time, aren't they? And identities are being created and recreated in the modern period. And so looking to the past is really interesting to see what's changed, what strategies are we still using, is there any continuity? So yeah, it's a subject that's of real interest in the modern world. And to give an example, in the medieval period, Wales is defined for the first time using Offa's Dyke, a monument that sort of runs between Wales and England, and that's still used today. We still refer to England as the land beyond Offa's Dyke. So some of these symbols are really old. The dragon too we see first in the 9th century. So there's certainly stuff in that pre-modern period that's of interest in the modern world.
Although I believe that at that time the question of the issue of national identity wasn't quite so much developed as it is today. It's a more modern, romantic notion.
Yes, well, in that period there was lots of interest in peoples, gentes they were called in Latin, and thinking about where peoples had come from and how was a people defined differently to their neighbours. But in the case of Wales, that wasn't political. There wasn't a political unit of Wales. There never was, and there was no desire for there to be one. So the identity was more cultural. So it was based on language, territory, customs. There wasn't any sort of single king who was creating a Welsh identity for a Welsh state.
And your writing is very much connected with your scientific researches. And you wrote this novel, In Twin Shadow, which deals with the heroine who is an illegitimate daughter of the Welsh king. And you put it in the 10th century. What does that period reveal to us?
Yes, it's a really interesting period because it's a time at which we see a lot of interaction between these different kingdoms. The English kingdom is forming and is trying to dominate a lot of its neighbours, and so what we see in the novel is the main character, Angharad, experience of these political developments as she moves between Wales and England. So it's a novel that really sort of crosses all these borders and shows the different perspectives of events of that period.
And you are particularly interested in the identity of women, I think. In the Middle Ages, the women were especially suppressed, I guess, but supposedly there is some inequality in Welsh society also today. You are actually trying to, I guess, come down to the roots of contemporary injustices. That's
an interesting way of looking at it. I suppose, yeah, what we find interesting about the past is often driven by present circumstances, and women tend to be absent from medieval sources. They're not there very often. A lot of these sources are written by men in monasteries, and they're not that interested in the activities of women. But there is still lots that we can learn about them because we can read between the lines, we can look at archaeological evidence, and there's a lot of work still to be done in this regard. But that's why sort of I've got these female characters at the centre of the novel, because it's trying to give a voice, I guess, to people who wouldn't normally be heard.
And I know that for the part of your being staying in Ljubljana as a part of the Ulysses Shelter program, you are supposed to write an essay. Will it again be a historical essay? Did you find some interesting historical reference points here in Ljubljana?
Oh, I've really enjoyed walking around, and I found some inspiration, I think, in the cathedral. I think there's something that's interesting there, and I was also very interested by the bridge with all the love locks, because that's something that you see a lot of across Europe, and it's always struck me as a very bizarre custom, and so I want to look a bit more into that, so that there might be an essay coming out of that.
Oh. So I wish you good luck also at other stays of the Ulysses Shelter program, and have a nice stay in Ljubljana.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca.